Kliff Kingsbury knows quarterbacking. They're in Lubbock, and he is called upon to choose between two pretty decent ones who have significant playing time under their belts. And to sort out the quarterback situation at Texas Tech, we bring in the best source I can think of from Viva the Matadors at the SB Nation platform, Hunter Cooke, to talk some Red Raiders. Hunter, thanks so much for joining us.
Anytime, Mark. It's my pleasure.
All right. So, again, we got Davis Webb, who's coming up on his junior season. He was the starter most of the season, 24 touchdowns, 13 picks, missed the last 4 games having shoulder surgery. Then you bring in Patrick Mahomes, who really lights it up. Wow. 4 touchdowns against Oklahoma, 4 against Iowa State. Then the big 6-touchdown performance when they almost shocked the country in defeating Baylor, that 48-46 game when he threw for just under 600 yards. So size this thing up for us, because we got a situation where outside of Ohio State and a couple places, not many places can boast 2 guys that have significant production under their belts.
Man, it is a very, very difficult thing trying to predict quarterback situations, especially with Kliff, and especially right now. Last season was just such a I'll go ahead and say it was a disappointment. It really was. And due to that, a lot of the stuff coming out of the field house and coming out of our athletics program is like it's locked up tighter in Fort Knox. We didn't get media access to a lot of spring practice, and due to the renovations on our stadium, AT&T Jones Stadium, we actually had our spring game in Midland at Grande Communications Stadium in the middle of spring practice. So what we did get to see of, Webb Mahomes was already cut down to a very, very small portion. And building off of that, Davis Webb didn't even play in the spring game. He was on the sidelines all suited up, but the official word from Kliff is that, man, he's already shown us what he can do. We're comfortable with what he can do. And they ran Patrick Mahomes and Nick Shimonik, who's actually pretty interesting. He's a redshirt sophomore transfer from Iowa who was doing pretty well all spring. He came in and he didn't play amazing in the spring game, but he was also behind a second-string O-line that was just decimated. Like, man, they had people starting for them, or people playing on the second-string O-line that weren't in the program. And he was just getting bombarded by pass rush after pass rush after pass rush. And I don't think that says so much about Shimonik as it does about the depth that we're going to have at defensive line next year. But, man, there's just no way to tell. Mahomes played great in the spring game, really, really lit it up, had some deep touchdown passes, made the right throws, got out of a couple bad situations, made some mistakes, threw a pick to Micah Awe, kind of really try to force a ball in there. But there's just so much that's up in the air. And Kliff said from the beginning, this battle is going to extend into August. And it's really looking like we're not going to know anything until one of the two steps out with first-team offense this fall.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Now, coming from a guy that didn't watch him play down to down, I saw the highlights. And that doesn't tell you a whole lot, because you have to see guys not just throw touchdown passes, but see them down to down. The statistics are comparable. Mahomes, though, against really good competition, really lit it up late in the season.
Absolutely, man. And he just got better and better and better as time went on. He was really thrown into the fire because Webb, he originally hurt his shoulder against Oklahoma State, comes back and hurts it again against TCU. And, man, those are 2 very, very tough teams to face, especially on the road like those, where Mahomes ended up finishing out the Oklahoma State game, if I'm not mistaken, and he definitely ended up finishing out the TCU game. So, man, talk about like a trial by fire. He is definitely battle-tested in that aspect. And that game against Baylor was really is really what a lot of the hopes for Mahomes are hinging on. Like, he played pretty well against Iowa State. He played pretty well against Oklahoma. He got hurt in a game against Texas. We couldn't really see anything about that. But, man, that Baylor game, he really lit it up. And he really got after a kind of embattled secondary. I would not call Baylor's secondary definitely the strength of their team, but they're not awful. And, man, Kliff just kind of cut them loose and was like, all right, it sounds cliche, but it was our bowl game. and he went after him, 6 touchdowns, and it makes for a really, really hopeful spring, because you see the framework there, and you see the foundation, and you see that he's gaining like the trust, and he's gaining the rapport with the receivers that he has. Man, when you got a true freshman quarterback throwing to a true freshman wide receiver for a touchdown, throwing to a redshirt freshman wide receiver for a touchdown, it's a good thing, and it's going to be big in the future.
Hunter Cooke from SB Nation's Viva the Matadors, breaking down one of the more interesting quarterback battles in college football. Hunter, thanks so much for joining us. We always appreciate it.
Anytime. It's my pleasure.